Cool. Excellent. So welcome to episode 3 of the P2U Barbell podcast. With us today, we have Theresa Cesnik. Is that right?
Yes, that is right. Well done.
Sick. So the reason why we invited her today is because she has 2 British bench press records. She's also the GPC World Champion of 2019 and the GPC Scottish Champion of 2019, and she has a gym total that will put tears in most guys' eyes of 530 kilograms. So welcome, Tess.
Thank you. You know, I actually haven't done the math of what my current gym total is, so that was like, oh, cool.
When you sent it over, I was like, damn.
You just all you need to do is forward it to Scott.
Chill. So let's just quickly just get a little bit of understanding about when you started training and why you started training. Because I think you've had a long history of training of different events and sports. So just, start with when you was a child.
Back in my day, no. When I was a child, okay, we'll just do it on sports. So my whole family, all my dad's side of the family were skiers, crazy Eastern European skiers. So I was probably skiing before I could walk. I'm probably more coordinated on a pair of skis than I am like on foot, just walking around. If you've seen me in a gym, you've seen me walking something at least twice or fall over something. But yeah, skiing and horse riding. I never horse rid competitively. That's my sister's forte. I can't be bothered. Give me something with a motor, not something with a mind of its own. And then I did a lot of dancing as a kid, but just like all kids did. And then I started fighting. I did Taekwondo for 7 years, which is not fighting, it's a sport. What are you going to do in a dark alleyway? Probably panic. It's just, I did Taekwondo for 7 years.
You can throw a pretty good punch.
Yeah. No, I can throw a really good kick. You never want to get kicked by me. Like when you list off all my sports, it's just like, all leg dominant. And it makes no surprise that someone nicknamed me Whale Quads at the start of last year. Yeah. And I was like,
so how come you got 2 bench press records and no squat records?
I know. No, I was like, what's he talking about? And then I got in the bath like the week after or whatever, and I'm sitting in the bath and I'm looking at my legs and just my quads sit out of the water and I'm like, it does look like a whale. So I did Taekwondo for 7 years, and I did like 2 years of kickboxing, and like all together I've probably done 4 years of Muay Thai. The last time I went back to Muay Thai years ago before England, I've been here 3 years. They were like, get back in the ring, and I was like, I don't need to be elbowed in the face for fun anymore. I'm okay, thanks. Just for fitness. Like, you see this nose? This nose has had some work. This is good it's getting, you know.
How many times have you been punched in that?
Punched? How many times have I broken it? I've broken it. I think I've now broken it 8 times. I think I broke it last year because I pulled a barbell into my face. I did black eyes and it bled. I broke it. Yeah, I've probably broken my nose from being punched maybe 4 times, 5 times. I've managed to not come out with any concussions because I've got a really thick skull. So no brain damage yet, at least not from the sports. Maybe from the rest of my life, but not from
what sports have you had the most injuries from? Where would you say you find the most injuries? In powerlifting or in Muay Thai?
Strongman.
Yeah, yeah. They don't care about the technique. That's why it's just lift it.
Yeah, just lift it. And like the injuries that you get in strongman are not normal. Like last time I competed in strongman, I crushed my finger between, I've got scars to it and my finger's bigger than the other one now forever, but I crushed my finger between a 110 kilo stone and a frame that I was lifting it onto, and didn't know why I was so grumpy until Mark said to me, what's wrong with you? And I said, I'm in a lot of pain, as I realized that my finger was bleeding everywhere and my muscle had like exploded out the end of my finger. That's not a normal injury. You know? Okay.
Question. If you could be number 1 in all the sports that you've done and competed in, which sport would you choose? To be number 1 world champion in respective competitions, Taekwondo, Muay Thai, strongman, powerlifting?
Powerlifting, because I'm better at it and I can look the way I want and I don't need to be too injured, and I don't have to do any cardio. You have to do lots of cardio in fighting all of the time, and it's not enjoyable. I don't need to cause myself that much emotional turmoil anymore. I'm not that much of a masochist anymore. I can have a relationship for that. And also, I don't want to be the best because other people will say I'm the best, if that makes sense. And nobody cares about powerlifting. I mean, unless you're missing a leg, it ain't in the Olympics, you know. So, yeah, I'm doing it.
It's kind of cool to say you're the strongest, I guess. You know, like,
yeah,
I can fight, but I'm the strongest.
The strongest technical lifter in the world. That would be really cool.
That's quite cool.
Yeah.
And do you find that when you prepare for all the different sports, particularly fighting, obviously you're going to need a very strong mindset for that. Do you find that they translate to when you're doing all the competitions? Do you use the same mental rehearsal methods to fire you up for the competition ahead?
I am the most hyperactive, naturally aggressive person you will have met in a long time, like face to face. I mean, you guys have all met me.
Yeah.
Especially in this country. I have no filter. So the last thing I ever need is to be more amped up. I am like actually one of the calmest, unfocused lifters at a competition. Like if you walk up to me at a competition, you ask me what I'm listening to, I'm probably listening to Devo or something really terribly 80s and just not getting too zoned in. Because if I get too focused, I was watching Kelvin compete. I was watching both of you compete, Kelvin and Aaron compete. I don't even remember where we were. I wasn't competing. Scott was competing, and it was 20.
Scott was probably reading Harry Potter.
Yeah, and thinking about competing. That was 28. It would have been 2018, I reckon. And there was a girl there, and she was lifting, and she was on like all of the gear. I still don't know who she is to this day. I bet you I know her now.
Steroids are not equipment.
Yeah, not an equipped lifter. She was on all of the steroids. And she was just like so worked up, and she bombed out like most of her lifts because she was just way too amped up, you know. And so I'm not, it's just really stuck with me. So I've never really been like that. If I got any more amped up than this, I'd probably pass out. I'm like this all the time. But no, I think that bodybuilding gave me the mindset that I have for training and for competing. Because I was talking about this last night, actually, is that I think bodybuilders, I think, overall get too much credit for being strong because they look muscular. When they're not strong, well, most of the time, very good bodybuilders are strong, but they're not strong and they're usually quite injured. But I think they're not given nearly enough credit for their mental game. Like bodybuilding is so a mental game. I did a comp not long before I moved to England. And I've only done the one in figure, and I got on stage and I came third and whatever. But afterwards, I left anything to do with fitness. I was dating someone in fitness. I left everything to do with fitness, my job, my boyfriend, everything for a good couple months. I just couldn't look at it, you know. But coming back in, when I go back into competing, I ruptured a ligament in my ankle 2018. Kelvin, I think that was 2018. And then we went down to Salisbury and I benched 100 kilos with 1 foot off the ground for the first time ever. That was the first time I ever pressed 100. I mean, I looked like a penguin, you know, like stuck on my back with my foot in the air. But like my head doesn't go, you're injured or you're dieting, have a cry. My head just keeps going, you know, and that's totally from bodybuilding. Definitely from fighting, but more so from bodybuilding, I reckon. You know, and like I spent years partying my ass off. Like my body can go through a lot more stress than the average human.
Is that where you got your new? We'll plug your website here quick. Your new Rogue Wolf Tribe from, because I thought I'd have a quick look at the definition of what rogue actually meant. So for everyone out there, it's an elephant or another large wild animal living apart from the herd and having savage or destructive tendencies. Is that why you decided to name yourself that?
Yeah, actually. So Vargulf is like a rogue wolf in Icelandic, and a Vargulf is a wolf that will go into the pack of sheep and kill all the sheep, but not eat any of them and leave. It hunts for sport. You know, it's an animal that hunts for sport, not survival. No, but I've always kind of been weird and a bit of an outsider. I got late diagnosis, autism, the start of last year. And a lot of things have started to make a lot more sense since then. Like, we all definitely knew, but now it's like, yeah, okay.
On Kelvin's podcast, we was talking about how like the powerlifting, especially and strongman community, is very like we're all kind of mates, we all like look after each other and help each other out, especially in competitions. Do you find that's really helped with how you've progressed as an athlete?
Someone's delivering something to my house, and my dog's going to eat him. We'll just ignore that. Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to yell at my dog. Hey, stop it!
This is like Joe Rogan, like uncut.
One moment.
You go get that dog.
So Rich.
Hey.
Sorry. I'm just going to ignore him. Yeah, I find that that's kind of where the whole tribe part comes in. I find that powerlifting is very much a tribe. I think that's been really awesome because everybody that I've met so far in powerlifting, I don't think I've met like a normal, boring human the entire time I've been a powerlifter.
Even when
for sure, yeah. You've got to be a little bit unbalanced, haven't you?
You know, or from a weird place. Like if you are sort of a bit more normal, you know, and
you compete in IPF.
Yeah. No, that's just if you like people telling you that you're shit and judging you. If you didn't mature past high school politics, then you compete in the IPF. Shit. There's that lack of filter. No, if you want to do something like that, you do something that's going to be recognised in the public eye more. You know, you want to do CrossFit because CrossFit's really cool and fashionable and it's everywhere and, you know, and everybody looks amazing. Or you want to be a bodybuilder, but like if you just want to be really fucking strong, like the Juggernaut when he digs himself out of the concrete in the X-Men film, then you go and be a powerlifter. Not many people want that. You know, like Kelvin goes, I want to look like a silverback gorilla. I mean...
Do you think it's down to like technical, with squats, bench and deadlift? It's so technical, and actually you're actually only getting good at 3 exercises, whereas I think, and you're trying to lift as fucking much weight as you can, whereas I guess like other things like CrossFit, like you mentioned, it's maybe a bit...
I think it's because you lot hate cardio and you love eating food. That's it. There's no other thing. And it's 3 exercises you have to be on top of your game for.
Okay, so I was a weightlifter. My first ever weighted sport was in school. I kept getting kicked out of classes, and just by chance, I ended up doing weightlifting. My year-level coordinator used to be on the Canadian Olympic weightlifting team. She was the most terrifying woman. Like Aaron, she was doing drag. I was in like my first year of high school, so she probably actually wasn't that giant in hindsight. I was just this like really tiny human. But she was terrifying. And she was like, come to this room, show me the weightlifting room. She's like, pick that bar up above your head. And I did it, and I just snatched it because I grew up like country, you know, with hay bales and stuff. She was like, pick that bar up to your throat. And I did it, and I went like this. And she's like, come back at lunch. And then she used to use it to stop me. If you get kicked out of class, you can't do weightlifting. But weightlifting, this is what I used to say. People used to ask me a lot if I was a CrossFitter because I'm leaner than a lot of powerlifters. I do a lot of plyometric sport because I reckon that plyometric explosive outlet has a massive crossover to powerlifting.
Do you want to like dumb down what plyometrics is for like anyone?
Right. So powerlifting is a static sport. You stay still, you do a squat. You stay still, you do a bench. You stay still, you do a deadlift. Your feet stay where they are. Plyometric, anything involves movement. It involves a quicker reaction system and moving. Dodging cones in a football drill, that would be plyometric as a general example. But if you think about dodging cones in football and you put your foot in the ground to jump the other way, right? It's good because this is actually a video. To jump the other way, the amount of power that you can get pressing out of that one leg to your own body weight will not only predict how fast you get out of the way of the person running at you, but it will also predict how fast you can go from bent over with a barbell to standing up in a deadlift. You know, so there's a massive carryover. People turn around to me who are from a sports science background and they go, oh yeah, but there's no crossover. Now, if you're a long distance runner, there's not much crossover. But I mean, even long distance runners do squats with barbells in a gym. If you're a rower, you train like a deadlift. You train like a powerlifter. I mean, rowing is deadlifting repeatedly in the water with 6 other guys in the boat. But yeah, I reckon, I've done all this plyometric stuff, and I was a fighter, so I can skip. I can do pull-ups like for days, and I can snatch a barbell above my head. And people are like, oh, she's a CrossFitter. I was like, no, I take steroids. They won't like me.
Oh, awesome. So would you say your specialist is the bench press, or do you prefer a different lift?
No, I love benches, babe. I'm such a bro, hey. Are you training today? Chest bro, benches my friend.
It's Monday, isn't it?
Yeah, every day is chest day. No, see, I don't know. I've always had strong legs. So when it came to deadlifting, my first comp with you guys, I got in the car after I might have driven my Range Rover into a pothole and got it stuck. And you guys had to come get me. I got in the car and Scott was sitting in the back seat and he goes, so I hear you've got a pretty big deadlift. And I was like, I don't know. Sure. I guess so. Yeah. And I've always felt that I've got a reasonable deadlift, not that I've got a phenomenal deadlift, but I've always had a strong bench. And I know that stereotypically women are not good at benching. And I'm not built to be good at benching. Before I took gear, I was 58 kilos before I did a bodybuilding competition, or up to 65. That's sort of where I sat. And I still benched 75 kilos when I was 65 kilos body weight and no gear.
So what do you think makes you a good bencher? Obviously, you just said it's not the way you're built. So what, you just train it so much, you just enjoy it? So
I think I'm not technically built the way you would think a bench presser should be. Like a good bench presser statistically is broad across the torso, which I am generally broad across the torso, but they don't have very long arms, so that they can have a normal width grip on the bar and not have to move the bar very far. And they've usually got very strong triceps and rear delts. They've usually also got long lats because it's a good support system for their spine to be able to push the bar back away. Science. I
forgot to tell everyone on this podcast that actually you are quite smart. So we'll get that away now. So she might say she's autistic and doesn't. She doesn't know what she's talking about. With benching, what do you think about the arch? Obviously, you have to arch to get the body in the right position, but overarching, or do you just think go make your arch as big as you can if you're flexible enough to do that?
I think Sweet Burns puts it best. Puppy Panora 5th set. Sweet Burns puts it best. The idea is to get your shoulders to be able to stay in retraction and plant your traps into the bench. Yep. It doesn't mention anything about turning yourself into the exorcist. In a good position to get your traps into the bench, to be in a better scapular position for safety of movement, and then be able to keep your ass on the bench, because otherwise you're not going to get the damn lift.
You're saying a slight arch so you can perform that, or you're saying actually let's bend the rules and get this huge arch up and you just bench press to the middle of your stomach?
I mean, I think that people should have the amount of arch that's biomechanically correct for them naturally. I don't think people should be putting so much time into forcing, if I had a bigger arch, I'll bench more. Just get better at benching.
Rich
stop being a pussy and train.
Yeah, when we went to us three went to Boris Shaker, he was showing us this stretch down the back of the wall to try and get your arch better. And I couldn't even get my arms. A couple the ladders in the old school. You walk backwards and I couldn't even get the stretch basically. But he was obviously wants to push the boundaries as much as he can. But I don't know. Would you spend any time creating that arch, or would you just train them to?
I would always spend time. Just to finish up on the previous question as well. At the same time, there is a point that I call too far. I've got this joke that I say, I don't want to see people knocking on doors. This is no bench press. If your arms are so wide apart and you're so far retracted in such an arch that you're basically just hinging from the elbow to the fist, that's not a bench press, in my opinion. There's got to be a portional range of motion through your shoulders, like through your scaps, in my opinion. That's just my personal opinion. That's because I'm a purist. I reckon that everybody, especially you blokes who can't tie your shoes without throwing your foot at your face and hoping for the best, should work on mobility. Kelvin can demonstrate that for you.
But do you say that? But we've definitely been spending a lot more time on warm up. I mean, for me, definitely, I felt as I've gotten older and coming in after playing rugby and then going to powerlifting and stuff, I think the warm up is majorly key. If I don't do that, then you're right. I'm having to fucking get that leg as high as I can to get my shoelace on. If I just spend that 10 minutes before a session, then it's like much better. And I know Rich must spend half an hour on your jiu-jitsu warm up as well, because obviously you're going to be putting so much stress through the elbows and stuff through that. So
absolutely, every time you always go back to it. The more you put into almost the preparation, the more you're going to get out of the session. I've been known, I put my hands up quick little warm up, and then you tend to wonder why you're not able to hit the depth, or you ache like hell the next day. And the more preparation you put into that, the mobility, the movement that you're going to perform, the better you then perform when you're doing the main workout. And then taking on something like jiu-jitsu, I was 33 when I started doing that, and being twisted and pushed into positions that I feel like my body's not meant to be in. It just makes you realise just how important mobility is, especially as you get older. We're all athletes in our own way, and the older athlete has to take care of their body for longevity. I want to be able to do jiu-jitsu I've got goals of being a black belt, and typically it takes a long time in jiu-jitsu to get that, especially in lockdown when you can't do it. But I'll be looking at maybe getting a black belt when I'm 45 maybe, and if that's doing well. But beyond that, there's black belt's not even the first hurdle. You can go on and you can carry on teaching people for the rest of your life. But I'm learning the hard lesson at the moment. I've got to just keep the mobility up, and sometimes it becomes that's got to be your main focus with your training for a while. If you've had an injury or if you're struggling with something, go back to the mobility, and then once that's achieved, then build on with the strength.
Yeah. Definitely. Kelvin's one for that. He's spent a lot of time on mobility recently.
Yeah, no, it's working well, especially with the colder weather as well. Training in the cold, spend a lot more time. Sometimes 45 minutes before you're actually in a position to feel comfortable to lift any real weight.
We all, Aaron, remember our good friend Steve Lewington.
Yeah.
His warm up was probably longer than everyone else's main session, but very rarely did I ever hear that he was injured, and he achieved a great physique and some great lifts. And, Steve, I wouldn't have said fitted in any one category of a bodybuilder, a power lifter, an Olympic lifter. But his preparation, it took so long for him to get into the main workout, but, he looked great and he was able to lift a lot of weight, and very rarely did I ever know that he was injured.
Yeah. Maybe that's one for you, Tess, is do you find the more muscle mass you put on, because obviously you've gone from, 60 to your bench press record at 75. So that's quite a bit of mass. And you are very lean, like you said. Do you find the more muscle you put on, the more you have to warm up, or are you one of those just warm up with the bar? I'm going to warm up with squats.
I'm squatting, warm up with squats. So the niche of what I do as a coach is rehabilitation training and rehab and prehab, but I don't work the way physios work. There's nothing wrong with physios. They're great. They've saved my life loads of times. But I don't train the way physios work, in that they get you back to where you were. I then keep going from there. And it's why did it happen in the first place? How do we stop it happening again? And then, like you were talking with that, do you train people to have better mobility for the arch? I mean, yes, if they need better mobility if I think that is where they're lacking in their strength for whatever lift or whatever movement, if mobility is prevalent as an issue, then yes. But I also include that once we get that mobility, for example, depth in a squat, you can quarter squat twice what you can squat in the hole. So once I get anyone or myself to that mobility point where they're doing what I want, you kind of have to start the strength grow all over again. So because I'm always training for mobility, and I'm always training for, I want to be the most technically perfect lifter I can be. Like, if at the end of the day people knew me for that rather than CrossFit World Records, I'd be pretty happy with that. That'd be like sick. You know, they'd be like, all right, Rain Man, you and your technique over there. But I don't want to be the form.
There's nothing better than a beautiful deadlift or squat. You know, you just look at it and go, actually, fair play, that was ace. It looked easy. Like, but when you see people struggling and shaking and that, you're a bit like, oh, yeah, you got it up.
I say that to all the boys. All of them. God, I miss you guys. But no, at the same time, like, sometimes you see people at a competition. Our competition's different because they're giving it their all. And I can't watch them deadlift. Oh my God, some of it's terrifying. Like, when you're in a mainstream gym, if you're working in a mainstream gym, there's like this unspoken rule that you just don't look at the deadlift platform. Don't look, you know, because it's terrifying. You're like, that person is going to die. Most of the time that I've actually walked over to the deadlift platform, somebody's not my client, I'm like, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but please let me help you because you're going to very badly hurt yourself. And I'm really, I don't even want you to pay me. Because in my head, I'm like, I don't want to train you, you know, but in my gym, please God. But yeah, I think that as I get more muscle, I've had times with problems with mobility. Lockdown has been the opposite because I've had so much more time to only do yoga and mobility and plyometric sports. I would say overall, I train much more like a high athlete, whatever. Buzzword.
Sorry, let's just quickly rewind you there. What's your thoughts on yoga for strength athletes, for the general public, and for like martial arts as well, or just an all-round general sort of thing to pursue?
I think it's fantastic. How many powerlifters or strength athletes do you know that have had lower back problems? Put your hand up if you've had a lower back problem. There we go. Do you know why I've never had a lower back problem? Because I've got a really good core from doing yoga.
Hands up if you did yoga last week.
Good.
Go.
Oi, that sort of podcast.
We'll see you when you get the steel rod in your spine, Kelvin, and see if you can do yoga then. But yeah,
I couldn't even sit cross-legged. It was that bad.
That's actually really bad. It's a lot of people though. Like, people go, I'm really fucked up and I'm broken and no one's as bad. The thing is, unfortunately, you're actually quite normal. The bigger the bloke, the more likely they're not going to be able to do anything. Like, my mate Joe stands up and stands side on. He's much better now, but he puts his hands behind his back and he doesn't have much of a neck because he does a strong man. So he's really got no neck, right? He looks like Dr. Eggman from Sonic. Him. But as if the shirt is built in, you know, with the lapels. And when he puts his hands behind him, like as if he was going to push something away from him behind him, his head goes forward. Like this one motion, and he's only getting maybe 10 centimeters past his hip line. Like, you couldn't see light between his hand and his bum, you know. And he's much better now, but that's a problem. That's a lot of people, and that's a problem. If you can't, a squat is a relatively normal movement. A squat to a competition standard is not necessarily normal movement, but a squat is a normal movement. You're going to be doing it till you're 80. You're going to need it to get off the toilet. You know, you're going to need it to get out of the car. You're going to need it to move house and pick a box up or pick up a cat or a puppy or a baby. It's all squatting, you know. And if you can't get your arms to here, you know, to either side of your delts in any amount of extension through your arms, you have a problem. That means
what's the what's the one thing you'd tell people to do now, like while they're in lockdown, to actually help longevity, mobility, and future progress? Would it be yoga? I don't want to answer the question for you.
No, I would say it would be yoga in the sense that most people who need to be doing this don't know what to do. You know, they would do it because they want to do something at the moment, but they don't have like an index of yoga exercises. I would say don't do Bikram yoga if you're not into yoga. It's not necessary for powerlifting, you know, or for strength sports. It's very much a yoga thing, and you'll injure yourself. I would say either, depending on the kind of athlete you are, like me versus like one of you lads would be more, maybe not so much you, Ricky, because you do jiu-jitsu, so you're a lot more mobile and plyometric than them. Even if you don't think you are, you're a lot more than them. I've seen them move. But, you know, if I would do like a flow or a vinyasa yoga. Just Google it, just YouTube it for free. They'll sit there. Some vegan tiny girl will be like, okay, now we do this thing, and she'll do it with you, you know, and no one else is there to see how much it's like. Whereas lads, I would say maybe don't do vinyasa straight away because, you know, you might not be that fit and mobile together. I would say do yin. Yin yoga is calmer, slower, it's stretching. You know, but I would say yin for mobility overall, and I would say vinyasa flows because you don't really stop moving to help maintain strength and mobility. Like, I don't think I'll come out of lockdown weaker. I don't think I'll gain strength, but I don't think I'll come out weaker, but I'll be a better athlete for doing so much more time on general health and mobility.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think that answered everything there. So I was going to say, you know, like there's always just seems to be this thing where a lot of coaches don't like other coaches being coached. You know what I mean? They see it as sometimes like a bad thing. So obviously you're a coach. We're all coaches. What's your thoughts on having a coach? And do you have a coach yourself at the moment, or for your records and stuff?
At the moment, no. I go in and out of having coaches. I think. What's a good example? I think you want to bake a cake and you go to the store and buy packet cake, you're going to be able to bake a cake, but you're not going to learn anything about baking cake or about any other kinds of cake, you know, about how awesome it could be. Whereas if you know how to make one thing and they know how to make one other thing, and you can train with them for a bit and learn what they know, you know, and if you know, there's those coaches you get. Sometimes you get very good coaches that say coaches shouldn't be coached. But my favorite thing to do would be to learn everything that coach does and then take it and use it myself, because they're not doing that with anyone else. So all of a sudden I'm going to be a better coach than them because I've got so many bits more of experience from various people than they do.
You're clearly a good coach, because as soon as you mentioned cake, Kelvin started breathing heavier.
I'm paying attention again. I'm back in the room.
Back in the room.
No, I think that's great, because obviously, like, I don't know, I think it's great. Like you say, you should be taking everything from everyone and compiling your own sort of like essentially like you have and like we all have, is we've created our own little way we coach people and how that gets our results. So just continue learning. Yeah, continued learning. Like. And
also being able to train various kinds of people with various mindsets and various training histories. And like, I don't even think people should just take coaching from their sport. You know, like if I was the best powerlifter in the world and I'd already done everything I wanted to do and I didn't have already a massive broad history of sports, I'd be like, right, I'm going to go learn to be a professional rock climber. See what that does, you know, or like you guys were doing trips down to the rock climbing place for a little bit of PTU and stuff, like back before the world ended. And, you know, and like I'd want to figure out, I really want to go back to doing dancing, but like contemporary dancing, just weird waving your limbs around like Napoleon Dynamite, you know, like all of those different kinds of training are going to make you a better coach, because until you try them, it doesn't matter whether you're shit at them or not, you have no idea what the biomechanical crossovers are, and you also will discover all sorts of things that you're actually shit at that you didn't even know, you know. And you might say, for example, your glutes don't fire when you deadlift. You might go and do salsa dancing and find out that it's all hips and glutes and realize that it's not your glutes, it's all of your hips, and thus in turn learn to use them and improve your deadlift and look great on the dance floor and ready at 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's a great
Don't kick him out.
I'd love to see Kelvin. We should do it one day, to be fair. We'll do it. Me and Kelv, arm in arm.
That's the next podcast.
Yeah.
You got pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So saying that, is there anyone that you either look up to or you've gotten most of your information from? Who do you find that you always kind of end up going back to or looking at the most, or is it just is there lots of people?
There's there's lots of people that aren't necessarily powerlifters. I am autistic.
You can name a couple. Kelvin didn't, but you can.
Yeah, no, I will. I even said to him after, like, you should name them. It helps them. I am autistic, so I'm very single-minded. So I'm very like, I'll do it myself. And yeah, there's guys on Instagram called Move You. It's just a U, and they're physios and chiros, and I love them, and they're hilarious to watch. You know, like, I love the guys at Squat University, but I have a very short attention span, and sometimes it can be a little bit monotonous. I don't want to go back to school. I want to watch this while I'm on the toilet and then move on with my life, you know? That's an important thing to remember with any content you're creating, you know? People are going to watch this while they poop, and then they're going to put it down. So, you know, get it done. But yeah, I Move You guys, I go back to all the time. I really love Bonnie Schroeder, who's like part sponsor owner of Hate Brands. Bonnie Schroeder's really cool, and she's like a really lean powerlifter and just a really real human. You know, I more have these people who I follow and pay attention to because they do all the things we're all trying to do, and they're still completely themselves while they do it. They don't get caught up on all these sort of false pretenses, and I think that's much more important to me. But when it comes to legitimate training, I mean, Dave Beatty made my squat, you know, and there's things that Dave Beatty taught me that I will always use when teaching other people. Even things like Dave will try to kill you in a session, you know, and when I meet the right kind of client, let's see what it takes for them to die, you know, and for some reason they pay me again. I don't know. But yeah, and then there's stuff I learned about conjugate from Adam Hindle, just a little bit of a further window into conjugate. There's stuff I learned about floor pressing and all those sort of like really old school basic powerlifting movements, but how to get the most out of them. And that's all from like Mark Bell from Super Training Gym and from Swede Burns, you know, with Fifth Set. But yeah, that's probably overall the thick of it. I love training with my friends and with people who are coaches and stuff like that. But my brain doesn't go, this is a learning experience. It goes, this is an enjoyment time and experience, and we're going to stop working and enjoy our friends' company.
Yeah. Are you training much through lockdown? You managed to get anything in, training for any comps?
I have access. I have the ability to train, but I don't really have like I can't complain as such, you know, like so many people don't have access to train. I have the ability to train, and if I had a competition that I knew was happening coming up, then I would be like, okay, you know, I will do that. But as it stands, I don't have to be in a gym full time to be able to survive where I am. And if I'm not in a gym full time, it means that I can sleep more, and it's cold, and Ricky's dog's really upset.
Visitors.
Yeah, and you know, it means that I've lost my train of thought. I just want to see your dog. Ricky, can we see your dog? Thinking about, like, where's the dog, man?
Dog, if you want, it's a sausage dog.
Oh, it's tiny.
Oh, look. Here he is.
Is he really old?
It's 13.
13. Jesus. I'm not picking my dog up. There's no happening in my dog.
Pick your dog up.
Yeah, that was how strong you are.
Hi there. He's coming. He's coming. He's coming up the stairs. Come on.
If you are listening to this on Spotify, I suggest you go to YouTube.
Yeah, hey, buddy.
Yeah. Look, there he is. Screw.
Hi, you're very hairy and your breath. That's our zoo. Welcome to Aaron's podcast. It is a zoo. I haven't been in a gym as much as I would be if the gyms were open. I think at the moment I'm kind of about to start a system where I'm doing mobility and yoga, like generally consistently. And I'm walking my dog more consistently further. He's an old man now, so he doesn't do the big hikes like he used to all the time. And then one day a week I have access to a gym, and I think I'm just going to like squat, bench, deadlift, maybe like 3x3 something conjugate, just to keep me like strong and testing and seeing what all of the yoga and the strength work that I'm doing with resistance bands at home is doing,
Are
you doing anything? Oh, sorry.
You enjoy like a bit of a break from just like heavy training all the time, just constantly feeling broken and fatigued?
I mean, yes, gear kind of keeps me not that fatigued. And like, you've met me.
So am I right in thinking you're still running a bit of gear then, or you've come off?
Yeah, I don't come off. As a female, the female hormones go up and down all the time. So for me, after using myself as a guinea pig for like the first year, I took gear, which was interesting. I'm pretty sure we had a nickname for me if I took methyl tren, because I'd start the day as Tess and end the day as Bruce. That's right. Yeah.
It was very instantaneous, yeah.
Yeah, it was throughout the day. My voice would go from this to like somewhere down there. I'd sound like Batman for like 4 days afterwards. And now I just take primobolan, which is kind of one of the only really known things that women can comfortably take. There are actually a lot of things women can very safely take, but I don't take much. I take 1 dose of it a week, like 50, 25 meg off season, and I just stay there the whole time because like I went on and went through puberty again. Yay, joy. And then after that, it kind of leveled out, and I still have a hormonal cycle. You blokes won't understand this, but I still have like a hormonal cycle that is like, it's like clockwork, so I get a bit bloated, I get a bit lethargic, I feel a bit weak for like a couple of days, and like I might get a bit spotty, and then I'm like, oh, what's the date? And someone's like, oh, it's the end of the month. And I'm like, yeah, all right, cool. And I just kind of ignore it for 4 or 5 days. And all of a sudden I've kind of got abs again and everything's fine. Yeah. So I figure if I'm still having this hormonal cycle, that should, in theory, mean that I'm messing with my body as little as possible for someone who's made the decision to take performance enhancing drugs.
I guess it's going to be a good time to shoot in towards nutrition now. So I was having a look through your website and stuff. So you kind of use this term intuitive eating coaching. So obviously I want to go into the diet because I want to see how that affects you, but I just want to understand what that, like, I've read about it a little bit and I understand what it means. I just want your kind of take on it, and then we'll go into how nutrition affects you as well.
Sure. So usually, no matter what the goal is, people come to me for nutrition and they're expecting me to get them to count macros and count calories. And in my personal opinion, the only time you need to know what your calories are, your calories, not your macros, but in my personal opinion, the only time you need to know what your calories are is when you're trying to lose size of any form and be in a calorie deficit. Furthermore, I don't give a shit how you're in a calorie deficit, like different kinds of diets. It's all about which one you're gonna do. If you're happy to not eat carbs, then that's how you get a calorie deficit. If you're not, then don't do that one. It's all just about calorie deficit. But if your goal is maintenance or your goal is just improving your health, which a lot of like longer term powerlifters, it's about improving their health. Like I know Kelvin, you recently stopped eating gluten, and that's just mostly been a massive thing about improving your health because of like family.
Beautiful.
What?
His skin is beautiful.
He looks more like a cherub with a beard than ever before. Take the beanie off.
Has done nothing for his hairline.
Show it. Kelvin's hair is growing back, not as he would like it to for everybody who's just listening. It's really beautiful. Ooh, so much forehead. And
sorry, carry on.
If they're trying to put on size, if they're in a healthy place, the only time you're trying to put on size and weight is when you're in a relatively healthy place. You're not morbidly obese and then going, I want to get fatter, unless you're one of those weirdos who wants to do it for money on OnlyFans.
A squasher.
Yeah, squash. What?
Hey, don't judge.
That's something new every day.
Oh my God, no way.
Quiet ones.
Does that make you a feeder, Ricky? Like, is that the other? Hold on. Aaron, you said that you were business partners. I'm thinking that maybe it's a different kind of business.
That's why he's in the other room. He's not allowed to come in our room.
It's the bright side of the dungeon.
You've got to be able to see the Twinkies that you're making into a masterpiece. You can't leave them in the kitchen; they'll eat everything. That's actually true. that last bit. So intuitive eating, basically, they tell me what they're generally eating. We don't have like a form as such for that, and how they eat, like if they're vegetarian or whatever, if they have any allergies. And then I don't ask them what they're eating. I don't care what you're eating. What you are already eating is what you're going to naturally eat. If somebody's coming to me for health, we're going to go into what they're eating. I say to them, do you eat only beige foods? And they're English, so 80% of the time they go, yeah, I do. All my foods are the same tan color and come out of the frozen section of Tesco. I eat like a child. Then, so they fill a form out once a week that says how many meals had protein in it, how many meals had carbs in it, and we don't really do much on it for the first couple of weeks. And then there's also questions about how well they slept and how well they performed and if they're happy with their overall aesthetic. Like they can be indifferent. There's a lot of options. And then if they're consistently don't have enough energy but not sleeping well, then we look at their water. I say up your water and eat a little bit more carbohydrates, and then we see what that improves. And then you go, okay, everything's much better, but I'm sore all the time and I don't feel like I'm getting much stronger. We say, okay, well then let's now up your protein in 2 of your meals each week. And you do it like that by that way, and it just becomes more natural. They are learning what they need as they go, which makes them more likely to stick to it. And they're including the kind of protein or carbohydrates or fats or whatever that they choose to. So they're more likely to stick to it. And it's already automatic for them when in the supermarket. And they end up looking at their food as, is there all 3 macro factors in this meal whenever they look at their food? And have I drunk enough water? Or I'm feeling tired today. I didn't sleep well. Because I didn't eat very well yesterday, I'm going to go easy on my session today. I'm going to now go have some more water. And all these decisions start becoming more natural. And that's the whole point of intuitive eating, is that I find that the best way to get people anywhere with nutrition is not to tell them what to do. It's to educate them at a rate that they're happy to, and so that they know what to choose when they want to make a choice.
That's cool. That's cool.
Do you take supplements yourself, other than the ones we've already mentioned? And are there any brands that you swear by, or you're even sponsored by? Or
so I'm not sponsored by a supplement company at this point. I am sponsored by like a gym and clothing company at this point. But excuse me, I take supplements from Strom. The supplements I take from Strom are actually, I don't take a protein or EAA or a BCAA from Strom. I used to use their pre-workout, but it made me feel like I was going to die, so I stopped having it. I've been taking Chaos Crew, Bring the Chaos, the sour gummy flavor, for years on and off, and I love it. It's so good. It tastes good. If you're not doing enough, you feel like your skin's on fire. If you are doing enough, it barely even happened. From Strom, I take things that are more for, I guess you could say, holistic support. So I take their neuro support, which really helps with my brain fog and chilling me out, because as you can probably tell, that's a difficult thing. I'm like a ping pong ball. So it helps chill me out in the evenings, because I come home from my part-time job I'm doing through COVID, and then I build my website and do all that. So I'm still staring at a screen. So I need something to help me kind of switch off when I clock myself off. I take their joint support in powder, which is what I'm drinking at the moment, because I'm like pretty much addicted to it. I stopped taking it, and like within a few weeks, all my joints and my bones are aching and stuff like that, especially as I get leaner, because I don't hold much fat around my joints, which is not great for powerlifting. Good for bodybuilding. Yeah, and I take their Hydromax, which is it's basically just a hydration support system that doesn't have as much sugar and crap in it as something like Powerade. It also helps massively with back pump, especially with back pump for people who are on gear. And if you take gear, you are fully aware of the debilitating back pumps you get from gear. The only problem with these three things is once you start using them, you then can't not use them because your body's like, everything's great. And then you stop taking them and you're like, I'm not okay. And then when it comes to toast, tastes good.
Didn't plug her actual sponsors though.
No, she did. Oh, she didn't say. We'll do that at the end. So I take it you intuitive eat as well. What sort of meals do you like to eat before you compete? Do you change anything or do you just keep everything the same?
When I compete, I don't eat any meals. I've taken meals to competitions and I don't end up eating them. That might have something to do with the large amounts of anadrol I take on the day, killing my appetite. But I snack. I want like sweet gummy lollies and then like salty Doritos or crisps. I want salt, carbs, glycogen, sugar. I don't want to think about it. I just want to, you're covered in chalk and shit, and you don't want to like touch things or wait for a microwave and, I don't want that.
That's cool. What about the night before though, like, or the week before leading up to it? Is there anything different you do?
If I've had to do a water cut or if I've been dieting in general, because I'm pretty good with my weight management, so I compete at a lower weight class now than what I walk around at by about 3 or 4 kilos. So about 6 weeks before comp, I start cutting weight. And the only thing I do to cut weight is take out like a snack and I take the carbs out of like one of my meals, or like I'll halve the carbs out of one of my meals because I'm really active, and because at that point in training I'll be really conditioned. It kind of just happens. Also, once again, gear. As soon as because I've dieted so much with bodybuilding and stuff, my body's like, oh, we're dieting, okay. But if I have to water cut or something, then you weigh in the day before for the competitions I do. So I'll eat whatever you put in front of me the night after that. Miller and Carter, share platter, just for me, and pudding, thanks.
I've witnessed it. She can do it.
Kelvin watched me eat this, one of the first times we went out for food, and he watched me eat this, and he was looking at me a bit strange, as Kelvin looks at everyone a bit strange, and I said, what? And he goes, I don't know if I'm demasculated or slightly turned on.
Bit of both.
How much weight are you cutting at the moment, or have you cut? Like, what's your sort of maximum weight do you think you can get away with without performance going down?
My performance thus far hasn't seemed to have been affected by radical weight cuts. It doesn't mean it wouldn't be. When I did a bodybuilding competition, I wasn't on gear, and at 65 kilos, I did a double body weight deadlift. So I did 130 kilos. Yep, that's maths. Way back then, back in 2016. And then in 2017, the year I competed, I got this wrong yesterday. In 2017, the year I was competing, I said during my prep that I wanted to be able to still do that deadlift in peak week. And so all of that dieting, first bodybuilding comp, I lost like 10 kilos. I was tiny. Like, I thought I had so much muscle, and I look back at it now, I was like, oh, little baby. But I still did that deadlift, during peak week at the lightest I would get. So I don't personally have too much issue with that affecting me. I don't think I'd be able to do something that took a few days in that circumstance, like a triathlon or something like that, or events. But one day I seem to be fine. I think it's also because I spent a lot of my young adult years very hungover and coming down off party drugs, but still going to work, so I'm kind of used to being in that. I was already used to being in that fatigued state while having to perform and use my brain and things like that, and change.
What's a drastic weight cut for you? When you say drastic, so are you talking like 3, 4?
Started last year. Excuse me, sorry. Started last year. I went into the 67.5 kilo weight class, and because after Worlds in 2019 I was walking around at like 70 kilos, like 69 kilos, and I was like, well, I won that one, I'm going to go down a weight class. And that comp is when I got my first British record, when I was the lower weight class, And everyone's like, wow, how did you train to get a British record? I said, I didn't. I got lighter. So the record got lighter. But no, I weighed myself like 2 weeks before the competition, and somehow I was 73 kilos. And I was like, fuck, man. And I did a water cut. I did a proper planned out water cut, and I lost a stone. Now, I reckon 2 or 3 of those kilos initially were just like bloat or something like that. You know, I'm female and I've got a lot of muscle. So when I bloat, I can bloat by like 4 or 5 kilos.
Yeah.
I got down, I weighed in at 67.4 and I had to be under 67.5. And I was so dehydrated that I smelled like cat pee and I couldn't speak. My throat was so dry. And I was like sweating straight like body product, you know, like not water. But yeah, I lost a stone in a week. And then we went to Wagamama's and I sipped like electrolytes and water and like some protein brownies in the little bits on the way there. And then I ate like 3 meals of Wagamama's and went to bed and woke up the next day and was like, I slept so good. And I was fine.
What were your squat and benches on those days? I think it was your deadlift. Your squat and deadlift on those days. Was it 200? Was it?
No. Well, I got 185 on my squat. I'd gotten 185 at London's strongest just before, but I hadn't gotten it on GPC platform. So it was like strongman depth. That's like GPC depth. So I did 185 squat and it was like butter. I did it as my 3rd attempt. I was like, should have gone higher. I did a 112.5 bench and that was fine, but I was sore. So I got loads of things wrong with my shoulders over the years. So I did 113 bench and got the record. And then I went and pulled 197 and failed it, which I'm never pulling again because I always fail it. And I walked up to the platform and I was like, I want 200 on there. And I know the girls at the table and they're like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking sure. I've fucking pulled it in the gym that many times. It's happening. And when they said the weight, the people, I knew most of the people there, and they all kind of looked like they were like, yeah, you know, because they all clap as they're putting the weight up and the bars loaded. And they were like, they saw the weight and they all kind of stopped clapping and looked at me like, but bitch, you failed that one before. You know, like even the person roughing me, who I know quite well. And I walked up to the bar and I just kind of stood up with the bar, like, you know, whatever, you know. And she looked at me, the girl roughing me, and she was like, all right, fair enough. And I was like, okay, I can go home now. Fuck you guys. But, you know, so it was a good comp. I was a weight class lighter. I had veins through my shoulder blades and like abs and veins through my legs and like all those things that you guys give stupid names to, like the horseshoe and the all those weird gaps in your muscles. I had all that and I got a British record and, you know, a 200 kilo conventional deadlift. And my feet are like only a foot apart when I conventional deadlift. So I was pretty happy with that.
Nice.
You know,
Cool.
stone. And what?
Before we finish up, do you just want to give a little plug to your new website, which you dropped this week? Just tell us a little bit about it.
I have relaunched my website. Nobody needed to know about my website before. It looked like a drunk child had done it. Basically, you can get in contact with me for every kind of coaching that I do, whether that is competition coaching, general strength and aesthetic performance coaching. I also do the rehabilitation stuff, productivity coaching. I don't like saying life coaching because it's lame, but let's be honest, that's what it is. And my intuitive eating, there'll be ebooks with recipes on there as well. So it's not just like learning how to eat yourself, but actually telling you what to cook. You can link up to there. You can see where I'm working when the world's not ending, and you can just send me an email with a random inquiry you have. That is roguewolftribe.com, ROGUE, wolf like the animal, tribe.com.
I'll chuck it in underneath this, the podcast and on YouTube as well.
Winner. And then you've also got a direct link to my sponsors on there and to the gym that I work at also. But my sponsors are a group of guys in Canada, a small group of guys in Canada called Misfit Strongman and Powerlifting, and they are just awesome. I met them at Worlds, and they're just really real people who just went, yeah, you know, you're like us. You don't fit in with anybody. Join us. And they got really good clothing and gear and stuff like that. Like it's from Canada. They send me these hoodies and they're from Canada and it's cold there and I get it and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I'm going to spend all of my diet in this hoodie. It's amazing. Yeah. You know? And they do like really good shorts and sports bras and things like that. So if you follow me on Instagram, it's Theresa_Saurus Rex. You'll see my posts with their stuff in it. And, you'll be linked to them through me. And if people want to order through them, I tell them to get together and tell me. And then you just pay one shipping cost through me because Canada is expensive.
Just before you go, what are your future goals? Sort of long term and immediate goals. Where are you going next? What are weight categories, comps?
I want to compete in sub 67.5 as long as I can, because I know I don't have much longer until I've technically got too much muscle to be at that body weight without my joints and my lifting then be affected. If I get lean enough like that, like I was at the start of last year again, then I might even do another bodybuilding stage just because I really like glitter. And I could, and I'd rock up and be like, hey, none of you have seen a carbohydrate for a month. Want a donut? Get on stage and leave, and that would be fun. Sexy. But yeah, there's that. I want to get CrossFit World Record bench, which is I've now benched 130 kilos in gym. And according to Open Powerlifting, the CrossFit World Record is held by an Australian. And it is 144 point something. So it's not far away. I'd like to get a CrossFit World Record squat, which I think is the world record in the GPC is like 230 for the weight class I'm in. So I'd like to be squatting like 240. Immediate goals, next comp, I'd like to squat 215, and I'd like to bench like 125 or 130 at my next comp, probably 130. I want to pull 200 sumo because I do both. Fuck the haters. Yeah, but you're broken, Kelvin, and I'm not. So who's winning? He's pulling faces at me, everyone. But yeah, I want to deadlift 200 on platform sumo, and then I want to go back and deadlift 220, 210, and then match it up to my squat conventional, just to confuse the shit out of people. And yeah, I'd love to have CrossFit world records in all three, but me and deadlift are having some arguments at the moment. There's relationship problems, so we're just going to leave that one.
That'd be the sumo.
I stopped doing sumo. I actually stopped pulling sumo because I was having these issues, and there's nothing's better. Someone glued the bar to the floor, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But yeah, and then I'm going to open a gym. I'm going to open a massive multi-training facility. So gym, seminar space, competition space. I do some teaching on the side as well for fitness-related things. So I want to be able to teach out of there. I want to have an Airbnb attached to it so I can live there, but also so refs and international people for seminars and loading crew can stay there, etc. And I want to work at Bath Uni. So that's the plan. A boyfriend would be interesting. I don't know if I want a boyfriend at this point.
Girlfriend?
God, no. Fuck no. I don't know how you guys date women. Women are crazy.
Wicked. Right. So before we finish, is there any quote you live or train by that you kind of stuck with you along the way?
Yeah, if he dies, he dies.
Wicked. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Cess.
No worries.
We'll get all the links and everything below the Spotify and the YouTube, and then we'll make sure we get this out.
Sick. Thanks, guys. It was good to see you again.